should you publish your book yourself? There is a huge amount of information out there about self-publishing. And I just want to issue a bit of a health warning. There are some agencies who will publish your book for you, but take a chunk of your royalties. That's not self-publishing. That is vanity publishing. That's allowing someone to make money off the back of your book. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about you taking control of the publishing process. You receive all of the royalties. 90% of the royalties, by the way. It'll take you a little bit of money to print and produce your book. If you think about the traditional publishers, you probably know this, they will take 90% of the profits because they've taken the risk to publish your work. You will only ever receive 10% of the profits from a traditional book, from a traditional publisher. So self-publishing immediately has an economic benefit. In the first week of when we published the 7 Failings of Really Useless Leaders, we sold 4,000 copies in that first week. We made 90% of the cover price, was £25. So I leave you to do the maths. We had more than covered our costs from selling 4,000 copies and getting 90% of the cover price. But I think that the economics of publishing, whether traditional or self-publishing, is immaterial because it's what happens downstream. It's what happens later that is much more important. The speaking engagements that you get, the coaching clients that you win as a result. So don't get sucked into thinking, oh, my book is this and I'm getting £2 for it or £8 for it. That's the wrong question. The question is, what does your book enable that you couldn't do without it? So should you publish your book yourself? I believe it is something that should be at the top of your agenda. And that means you either need to do one of two things. You need to learn everything there is to know about writing, editing, typesetting, design, publishing, distribution, or you hire a group of people to do that for you, or you hire an agency to tackle all of those things for you, because your sole contribution really should be the thought leadership, the knowledge that goes into the book. No one else has that. What you say, what you believe, the values that you hold, no one else has those values. Your book is a channel, is a market to get those values in front of the people that need you most. So I urge you, consider self-publishing for a lot of reasons, but don't get sucked into trying to do everything yourself. It'll just add to the length of time it takes you to do it. And there are plenty of, let's say, commercially viable, effective, efficient, I won't say cheap, but there are lots of people who can help you. On the web, there's a service called Upwork, which is a group of freelancers in all kinds of different areas, someone who will edit your book for you. There's somebody there on Upwork.com who could design a great cover for you. There's somebody who can typeset it and turn it into an InDesign project and then output it as a PDF, which you can then upload to Amazon or to Ingram Spark, a number of other platforms as well, but those are the two big ones, Amazon and Ingram Spark. So I urge you, concentrate on what you do best, which is researching and writing about the things that matter to your community. Hire other individuals or other agencies to do the technical work. Do you remember, you, the writer, have to do a lot of work at the start. The second half is all about editing, typesetting, and publishing. You don't want to be doing that. You really don't want to be doing that. You could, but you don't want to be doing that. It's not an efficient way forward. So should you publish your book yourself? I think a lot of good reasons. Economics. If you sell books, you give them to people at workshops, you sell them to people at workshops, you can give quite a hefty discount to the client who's buying your workshop copies or your public speech copies, but you can still make some revenue from that. Whereas if you go with a traditional publisher, you will have to pay close to full price, 60%, 70%, plus shipping them to wherever it is you need to be. It's a very expensive way to support your speaking and consulting projects. So I urge you, consider self-publishing for the economics, but also because it allows you to update the book. Every 6 months, your data might change if you're in a finance area, for example. I'm also thinking, over the past few years, we've suffered a range of catastrophes in the world. We've had the coronavirus pandemic. We've had the various wars in various places. And the whole economy has been very tricky. Logistics, the whole question of Brexit, let's not go there. Lots of big changes, which means that any kind of business case studies from more than 5 years ago is irrelevant. In other words, huge opportunity for you to get your book out, but also to keep it updated when something big happens in your area. A traditional mainstream publisher won't want to update your book if you're just talking about a couple of small changes, a graph here, some data there, a new case study. But if you self-publish, you have total control of your IP, and you can get a new version out in weeks, not years. A lot of good reasons to consider self-publishing. So Peter Domican, a colleague at Cranfield School of Management, said typical timescales for self-publishing versus the publisher route. To an extent, I hope, Peter, we've covered that. Timescale for the traditional route could be 2 years, 6 to 9 months to write your book. And then there's a period of reviewing and checking and proofreading and typesetting. And then the publishers will often take another year, 6 months to a year, to prepare the ground for launching the book. And that's really what they want to concentrate on. Have a big launch so they can say, this was really successful. Excuse me, I had my timer on. That means I'm running a bit behind. So think about timescales. The traditional publisher will take around about 2 years on average to get your book out there. Self-publishing, it's how much time you're prepared to invest. We've said earlier that Jackie and I, we're moderately skilled at this. We can get this out in about 3 months, 12 to 16 weeks. It'll take you a bit longer. But I think that if you assume that it'll take you a year of sustained effort, as long as you bring in other people at the tail end, you're talking about a year through self-publishing to 2 years with a traditional publisher. Of course, life gets in the way. And so things will happen. We worked with an author recently, and everything was going absolutely swimmingly, but real life happened. So a little bit of a pause for family issues there for 2-3 months. And then it took us a little longer to get the design sorted out. And we're talking about publishing on the other side of the world. So there were some logistical things there that crop up. But I think you can still bargain for a year through self-publishing, 2 years traditional publishers, and then real life might get in the way. So the question is, do you want your book to come out now and relatively timely, or do you want it to come out in 2 years and already be a little bit out of date? Which is kind of a signal to us to make sure that when you write your book, you write it in an evergreen way and try not to put too many time-bound dates, details in there. My sister-in-law, Yvonne Sonsino, Director of Innovation at Mercer's, the HR consultancy, put in a ton of graphs and charts. And of course, within 12 months, they were completely out of date. So that is, worth bearing in mind. How do you keep your book up to date? And maybe self-publishing can get you to market quicker and also allow you to update if your information is time-bound. I hope that makes some sense. So self-publishing sounds the right way forward, but what's involved exactly? To find out exactly how to manage the entire publication of your book under your own steam, click here to watch this video right now.